welcome to the Keystone Experience. Rob Warwick
and Matt Pitzer.
Brought to you by Creek Archery. Find your passion and hunt it down.
And Hillview Motors, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. Remember, Hillview has it in Greensburg, Pennsylvania.
What's going on, everybody? Hey, we got special guests with us tonight. Trapping with Jinx. What's going on, brother?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Hey, we appreciate you taking some time out and coming to hang out with a couple guys who can only catch a few coyotes. Nowhere near the numbers that you and AJ are putting up.
Yeah, well, we try to work hard at what we do, and we have fun along the way, don't we?
Yeah, it's been a joy watching you too, man. You know, you two, it's unbelievable the coyotes you guys are catching. And your dogs still look pretty good fur-wise.
Yeah, the last couple weeks haven't been too bad. I've had some rubbing on, which is typical this time of year. They rub behind the neck. Other than that, the fur quality just depends on the area I'm trapping. I've kind of noticed that this year. I've never noticed that before. Of course, I haven't traveled like I have this year, so. But, yeah, I've been able to keep most of my fur.
So you changing it up this year and adding more miles on, or?
Yeah, this whole year was a quest to catch 100 coyotes. That was my goal. That was my incentive. That was what I had planned on doing. That was pretty much my drive. Was just to stick to predator trapping and to try and catch 100 coyotes. But yeah, as far as how I put all that together, I think we all grow as trappers. I think it's important to note that we don't always just start out of the gate catching. We have to learn. Generally, we usually have a mentor, or we go to a lot of conventions, or we read a lot of material. I've been a trapper for about 24 years, 25 years. The 23 years that I trapped, my best coyote numbers were 21. So that was my best season. I started YouTube 5 years ago, mostly from my uncle, and we can talk about that later. But about 3 years ago, I tried to catch 40 because there was a guy in my area who was catching 40. And I didn't make it. I hit 21. And I realized I needed to make a change. So my methods just weren't producing the big numbers. So I did take the Kansas Mastery course out in Kansas with Ed Schneider. Learned some new sets, some new techniques. A lot of the questions I had as a trapper, I realized they struggle with the same things. Flip traps, avoidances, just the stuff that every trapper faces. The big numbers guys, they have the same problems. And that was where I kind of learned that. So I set that goal last year to hit 40. I went out west. I did some filming with Jason Vance a little bit, and he helped get my numbers up. I ended up catching 55. At the end of last year, I didn't feel like that, I didn't feel like I was where I wanted to be, if that makes sense. I realized that I think I had some potential, but I wanted to see what I could really do. And I don't say that in an arrogant way, but I wanted to really push myself even more than that. And so I took the LKL class with Kendall and Liesel. Put down about $1,300 for that class and learned some new methods, some new tricks. And I set that goal to catch 100 coyotes. And so I've heard it said before, and it really rings true now. If you want to catch 100 coyotes, you got to have 100 coyotes to catch in your area. And that is so much true. I mean, when I got to the last 2 weeks of my season, I was really running my areas dry, and I stretched out. I went up to Iowa to give you a recap of my season. I went up to Iowa. I live about 30 miles from the line, or about 20 miles from the line, I'm sorry. And I ended up traveling about 30 miles one way. I had 3 areas up there to trap. So I'm putting about 100 miles on my truck every day for about 2 weeks, 10 days. I got 10 up there. I put up about a coyote a day was my average. And then I went southwest about 60 miles and trapped there for almost 3 weeks. And I put up some good numbers. And then I came back and I trapped around my house, which is where I put up the 50 last year. So that's pretty much the recap of my season. I was planning on going out west, trapping for 2 weeks. Plans fell through. That when I really set that 100 goal, I thought, if I spend 2 weeks out in western Kansas and I don't come back with a whole bunch of coyotes, I'm gonna be a bad trapper. But I was kind of cheating. I didn't want to tell everybody I had they'll catch 17 coyotes in a day, out there in western part of Kansas. And but this worked out better for me. I had a lot of the ground that I trapped was new ground. Most of those spots I've never trapped before. I call that cold rolling as trappers, where you go into a new area, you don't know what, and at the end of trapping that, then you kind of have an idea where you need to be. So that can be the challenging part. Catching numbers and cold rolling it can be hard unless you're in a higher density area of coyotes. And I'm in a low density area where I'm at, so I have to fight for everything I catch.
You're in Missouri, right?
Yeah, I'm in the northwest corner.
That's what I thought.
Now, when I say low density, I mean most of my properties, because I track them through trail cams. When I'm trapping, I'm always tracking, so I'm always looking at the snow. A lot of those properties, the coyotes are only coming through once or twice a week. I mean, they're not real prevalent. I don't have a lot of scat. So it could be challenging.
He's talking about low density. He gets them once, maybe twice a week. That means we're super low density.
Yeah,
or at least my farm, the farm I trapped this year, you helped with.
Our coyotes travel crazy numbers.
And the area I went, I was kind of blessed. I got a rancher kind of guy, and he was the southwest property at 60 miles away, and he gave me somewhere between 13 and 17 miles of property, which is a big deal around here. I mean, when you can trap when there's nobody around, I think the nearest house is 2 miles away. That unlocked a lot of doors, but it was more of a medium density area. So like when I looked at, there was a marsh type ground. If you watch the videos, you'll see a marsh type ground. I go to those levee systems and I look at where they cross. And when I first started that, there was coyote trails, which I'd never seen that. Only one other place was out in western Kansas, where we have a lot of raccoons here. The coons, they make a beat down trail, and I'm seeing beat down coyote trails. I get pretty excited, when I see stuff like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist where I'm at, to see a beat down coyote trail. So.
Yeah, our trails here are on top of deer trails, but our coons do make their own trails. Our coons, I mean, it's crazy the trails that they have. Yeah.
And that they work differently in a low density area than a high density area. Because I've been out to western Kansas, they're more aggressive, out there. You could really come out looking like a hero, more or less. It's so much different, Whereas when you have fewer coyotes, it seems like they don't have to work your set.
Right.
If that makes sense. You have to almost force them to. You got to put it a little closer to where they're walking sometimes.
Yeah, we got some trail cameras that we got, some of our cell cameras on places that we know the coyotes are there. We seen them during bow season, and we put sets there, and you can watch the coyotes walk directly past the set and never pay it no mind. Now that all the traps and everything are pulled, I got coyotes that are digging where my stuff was.
For the bait.
I'm just going to let them go, and I'm going to keep rebaiting that until next year,
Yeah.
They're eventually going to come to where they're just going to get to the feeling, hey, every time I go to this hole, I got something to eat here. So it rolls
And a
around next
lot of
season,
that, I
I'll get
think,
them.
yeah, and a lot of that, I think, is that breeding season. I mean, once you get into that breeding season, it's a different ball game.
Yep.
I tell people it's kind of like at my high school prom. I remember the girls in the dresses. You know what I mean? And that's what you're thinking about when you go to prom. And I think breeding season is the same way. You know, when you're offering them something to eat, when their mind is someplace else,
Yep.
it's so easy to see how they could become distracted.
Yep.
So,
Yep. I kind of think of them the same way as I do a whitetail buck. You know, he gets stupid, and there's
yeah,
only one thing stupid that he's about. You know, he could care less about some acorns or something like that. He's just worried about one thing. You know, and I believe the
right.
coyote's the same way. You know.
Yep.
Well, you mentioned earlier, mentors and reading and stuff. Well, I mean, here's my mentor right here. Rob got me and the boys as our first year trapping. And, we had a blast with it. No coyotes. Like Rob said, they found everything after we pulled.
Yeah.
But
and that's kind of the thing. You just have to stick with it. And that's what makes it fun. Is it is challenging. You know. And that, I always remember the first time I shot a deer, the first time I shot a turkey, coyote trapping, bobcat trapping. It's the same. You still remember those things. And even after 20 plus years of doing it, I still get that feeling of excitement every time I check a trap. I mean, it's like it never grows old. It's always so exciting. You bust your butt, you get out there, you put in the work, and it's just so enjoyable to just be out doing it is fun.
And I still think that trappers are the best woodmen, and I'm not saying that because I am a trapper, but we're trying to take an animal and make them step in a little 3-inch area, kind of compares to bow hunting. We make a mock scrape. We want that whitetail to walk right to that spot so we can get the perfect shot. The same with trapping, and we also pay a lot more attention to trails and sign,
Oh yeah.
It makes you a better sportsman altogether once you start trapping.
Yeah, it's easy to break down properties because when you're trapping, you're getting used to breaking down properties, studying how they move, where they're feeding, where they're bedding. Same as deer hunting, really. But yeah, you think differently. I think it really refines you as an outdoorsman, a hunter. Being a trapper. I don't regret it for 1 minute.
No, and I ain't never gonna apologize for doing it either.
Yep, that's true.
So how did you get started in it? Where did the passion for trapping come from?
That's a good question. So a lot of people don't know this. I'm a full-time animal damage control operator, wildlife control guy. So I started my ADC business in 2007. I didn't start trapping until 1999. I was in college. My family, we grew up hunting. I mean, deer season was my Christmas. I mean, my dad one time my deer hunting. He said I couldn't go deer hunting, so I made the be on roll every time he said that. And so, hunting and growing up in a family where you hunt a lot, it is just that's part of it. But I got to where I was doing a lot of predator calling, wasn't having a lot of success. I think I was having maybe 1 in 10 stands. I was shooting one. And so I got a little bit of that behind me. I, had a little bit of revenge on the coyotes there. I had a buddy. He gave me the invite to go with him beaver trapping in college, and I took him up on it, and I enjoyed that. I thought it was cool. His uncle was making a coyote set along the side of one of our beaver stops, and I thought I could really get into that. My great uncle, he was a trapper. He was my mentor. He grew up trapping. I have a 410 shotgun for money that he bought from furs growing up. It's over 100 years old, you know. He was really the source that I needed to plug me into trapping. That's how I got into it. Went to a lot of conventions. We trapped together our first year, had a lot of successes. Caught my first bobcat that first year we trapped with him, and that was really kind of how I got plugged into trapping. I found my passion, which later on led into my business. Now, with my mentorship with my great uncle, he had kind of passed away. And that's how I started my YouTube channel. So I've got kind of 2 or 3 outlets. My business, which I mostly just mole trap all day long. And then I have my YouTube thing. And that's pretty much what I do, stay active doing. So
Mole trapping.
Mole trapper. Yeah.
Huh. That's interesting.
Yeah, I'll walk about 8 to 10 miles a day, just trapping moles. And so, you know, I'm doing that 8 months out of the year. And then when that shuts down, then I get into the fur trapping and my YouTube stuff. So
like, did a mole stop when it gets cold, or what do they do?
Well, in Missouri here, they don't hibernate. A lot of people don't know that, you know, I'll trap sometimes year round. I mean, some guys hang it up when they look at the calendar. There's a few tips and secrets to keeping your traps running. But most people aren't thinking about their yard in the winter months. So,
right.
You know, it keeps me busy doing the fur stuff. Yeah, I enjoy it. But I think I've caught about between 30 and 35,000 moles.
Holy.
You know, it's pretty wild.
Thank God you don't got to skin all those.
Yeah, that's the truth.
Now, is your trapping season wrapped up now for the year?
Yeah, our trapping season in Missouri starts the middle part of November, and it goes until late February. I think this year it went to the 29th. They had extended our season to where we could trap coyotes, raccoons, possums until mid-April. The thing about Missouri's trapping season now, we have a deer season that's rifled, and it's very popular. It'll run about 2 weeks. And our trapping season doesn't start in my area until after Thanksgiving. A lot of the properties that I have, they won't let us on them until all the deer hunters are gone. They're all leased. And I don't like trapping, or I don't like trapping during that time anyways, because we kill over 100,000 deer in our state during the rifled season. So we have over 100,000 gut piles laying around for them to eat.
Right.
And then I'm sure a lot of them don't shoot straight. So there's probably some deer that wandered off, and, which is good if I go up to Iowa and trap up there for a little while. So
now, do you got the same laws there? If you do find a deer carcass, you're not allowed to set on it. You have to cover the deer carcass so that it's not visible from the sky.
Well, we don't have a carcass law, so we could set on those if we want to. Okay. I mean, I don't generally recommend it because of the birds and that sort of stuff. Right. But no, we don't have any carcass laws here.
Yeah, see, here in PA, we're allowed to set it, but we have to make sure it is not visible from the air.
Oh.
So, like, brush piles, build your own brush pile and hide a coyote or hide a deer underneath it that somebody unfortunately didn't find. But,
it's strange how
deer lease is in the middle of 3 other pieces of property. So we always get those scraggler deers that somebody, makes a bad shot on it and wanders over to our property.
Right.
So then we're trapping over there too after deer season, because our season starts in October. So we usually don't start trapping, and I don't like starting until after deer season's over because of the same thing. We got gut piles everywhere. You got neighbors that are not shooting deer that are making it to our place that are dying. So the coyotes are basically fed for a month. So, I
Right.
start right around Christmas time is when I start because the fur is usually good by then too.
Yep.
So,
It, and it's funny how all the different states are different, aren't they?
mm-hmm.
You
Yeah,
know,
because
and
there's some states that them guys are still, what is it, March right now, and them guys are still trapping.
yep.
Now, did the weather affect you at all this year? Like, how was your guys' winter? Did that make it harder to get to that number 100 or
Well, I mean, I can't complain on the weather. Of course, obviously, there's nothing you can do about it. We had one good weather system that came through that produced, I think it was 10 to 12 inches, and then wind. The snow for me, just having access to the properties, that's what slows me down. I will use, well, I say, I usually trap until Christmas, until about the 1st of January, where I spread out real wide like that. And then I run a winter line for about a month. And it's usually properties that I can access by foot. So I'll walk them if I have to, that are close by my house because I live out in the country. I've got another 500-acre piece that's about 2, 3 miles away. I try to get on there as fast as I can because they catch a lot of coyotes there. So our weather really wasn't too bad. You know, we had that one system. It shut me down a good 2 weeks. It's the first time I've really been shut down. I walked it out a couple days, but then I realized it was just dangerous. I mean,
Yeah.
when you have snow that's that deep, and you're walking 2, 3 miles in it, it's like, I better
Yeah.
do something different. I'm not quite as young as I used to be.
Yeah, that's not good when it gets that bad.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine that because we had what about 4 inches of snow?
Yeah, total all year.
Yeah.
Our winters are nowhere near what they used to be.
Yep.
So you said earlier that you originally were around the 20 mark and wanted to really push yourself. So you went to some of these classes and schools. What did you take away from that, or what finally clicked to really start putting the numbers up?
So when I've been trapping for the 20 plus years, I would consider myself a really good trapper. 21 coyotes was not a bad number. I was averaging 3 to 5 bobcats a season. Those are really still pretty good numbers for a guy that's working full time, has a family. You come home, you trap traps early in the morning. Before work, you come home, you're skin and fur. Those are really not too bad numbers wise. So to get from there to taking the instruction, a lot of it's the approach of what I was doing. So I was using a dirt hole set with a collar, and that was my set. It was my only set that I was using. And like Mountain Man had said about the avoidances, when you get into that January portion, I still have some of my dirt holes out, but I'm also making T-bone sets, and I'm making duff sets, and I'm making other sets that they'll hit on because they do change a little bit. The weather changes. It's hard. It's hard to explain what a coyote's doing or thinking when he works your set. We don't have their nose. I mean, their nose is like super powerful. And being able to understand, how much bait, how much lure to use, that can be a hard thing to really go through. Another one of the problems is with trapping is there's so many myths out there. I mean, I was picking up books, reading those from some guys out west and trying to apply that here in the Midwest and realizing later on those methods won't work here. Same way with bait and lure. You had to go through some bait and lure that are really effective in other areas. And then I had to find out what base of the bait was what really works for me in my area. That's hard to really explain, but until you really put the pencil and the paper down and you start really tracking what you're doing, now I'm refining how I am as a trapper. Now I'm refining how I'm being effective, and I'm learning in my area what works. So to be able to come outside of that box to answer your question, it took some professional trappers like Jason Vance, Ed Schneider, Kendall Obermeyer, Lisa LaRussa, those type of instructors to really, really nail down how I can become better. Because that was what I was looking for. I was looking for that development, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't happy where I was, and it was just time to learn, go back to school. So.
Now you said actually putting pen to paper. Now, do you actually do that when you start putting a line out? Do you keep track?
Yep.
Like, how does that work
Yep.
for you?
Absolutely. So we have been blessed by the Onyx map system. I usually, the 20 years or so, I usually paper and I write it all down. But the Onyx system gives me, at least that's the system I'm using, to track all my traps. I could put the waypoints down, the pin points down. Every time I put down a pin, but when I make a set, I write down what type of set it is, what type of bait and lure I'm using. And so when I run my trap line, when I make a catch, I turn that pin a different color so I know exactly where I caught that at. And then I go through my notes because our phones have got those notes. It's like a note app. And then I will actually write down the set that I used, the property that I caught it out on, the date, and then I could track exactly everything that worked for me. And then at the end of the season, last year I put together my top 4 sets with the top bait and lure combinations that I used, so that I share that information. Now, how effective that'll be with guys in Pennsylvania, I don't know, but yeah, I'm pretty open, and that's one of my, I don't know if it's a strength or a weakness to micromanage, but that's what I do, and it seems to kind of work.
I honestly feel that with trapping, maybe the micromanaging is an advantage because, watching Rob, and that's why I wanted to get what you did so that anybody that's listening or watching can take something away from that, because watching him and how meticulous he is with, this is what I put here, this is what I baited with, and he keeps track of all of it, as opposed to, I didn't start off this year doing that as much. And then I'm like, wait, what was that? What was there? What did I catch out of here? And as the season went, I started trying to get my own system down as to how that all works and what bait works and what didn't work. Because there's probably nothing worse than continuing to put something out there that isn't working, but you think it is because you're not tracking it.
Right. And a lot of things, there's a lot of ingredients that goes into catching. I mean, not only the weather as far as the climate, the temperature, the moon phase is a big one. And there's a lot there to consider. Your wind and playing your wind. When you start to break down properties and you realize, okay, I'm going to trap off this point, but my predominant wind in my area for the next 4 or 5 days will be out of the northwest. I'm going to play that to my advantage. When you start making those types of approaches, now you're taking your trapping to a whole new level. And I always say when I set a spot, I set right with the wind, and I make a secondary set wrong with the wind, so that when the wind changes, I've got a working set in that location. Mm-hmm. And that's part of that micromanaging. But if I've got a location that I just know they're going to be, I've got to have those 2 sets there. As opposed to, I've got a pinch point, they're walking through here, I'm going to put the trap underneath their feet. Right. And then there's no decision, right?
Yep. And I was doing that too. I do a lot of walkthroughs on my 2 tracks, but I punch 3 holes. I'll punch 2 holes on one side and another hole on the other side, and then I just take a little bit of grass and cover those holes up, because I want them to dance around there a little bit and then step in the trap,
And part of that and why you do that is the wind. If you think about it, when they're going down that trail, if you put all your scent in that lure on that one side and the wind is blowing it the other way, they'll never smell it. Yep. But if you put another hole on the other side, then you're guaranteed to hit them.
Now, I get really, I don't know if it's me just being overcautious, but I do not like to use gland lure until January. I don't know if it's just me being nervous of using it or what, but because I don't know. I've,
Yeah. Well, I could see that. Um,
but I got
I
other
don't have an opinion for you.
local trappers here, they tell me they start using it in October, and I'm like, man, I just can't get myself to do it. You know, it's like me
And
getting up in a tree stand and dumping out doe urine on the first day of buck season or the first day of archery season in September. It's just not going to work.
yeah, yeah.
That's my personal opinion. You know, I think it's more that I'm just overcautious when it comes to that kind of stuff, and I'm really, you know, when I'm
Well,
using baits and lures, I try to use as little as possible until it comes to the bait. The bait, I kind of just stuff it down in the hole until I feel, you know,
yeah,
one big spoonful and cover it up with some straw or shove a chicken head down in there and move on.
yep. Part of the problem that we as trappers we overthink. At least I'm just talking on myself. Is I know a guy myself. Sometimes I can overthink things, and usually when I go into overthinking modes is when I'm not catching. You know, when I'm catching, I'm putting up good numbers and I'm rolling right along. I'm not changing much.
Yep.
But you're always going to have times. I speak, from experience. Hanging out with Vance and these guys that catch big numbers is, there's times where they won't catch for a while. They'll go through that little period of not catching, and experience will teach you to wait it out. It'll come back around again, and then I try not to overthink, because sometimes when I'm not catching, that's when I start to make different changes in the way I approach my sets, work my properties, and it could really be. You can liken that to baseball. I mean, I'm a baseball guy. I like baseball. Pete Rose one time he made a comment about guys that don't hit. When they're going through that batting slump, that's a mental thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he made a comment once that really stuck to me in baseball. He says it's how you approach the plate. He says when you're not hitting, you move up the plate. You're
Mm-hmm.
just making small adjustments. You don't change your swing. And I think trapping can really relate to about the same way. Having effective sets and then not deviating so much. You should see my bait and lure bag. It's this huge bag with everything. I mean, the kitchen sink is probably in there, you
Yep.
know. But once you learn how to find something that works for you, try not to deviate too much from it, and then make a secondary set with something a little bit different. But that's just how I approach not catching.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same way. I got two or three big plastic totes that sit in the bed of my truck that got all the lures in it, all the bait, you know, and
Yeah,
I carry a tool bag. Okay, I'm going to set this today, so I pull this out, put it in the bag. You know, I try not to carry all of it, but then there's days that I just take a 5 gallon bucket and put every damn thing I have in there and take it with me. And
yeah.
then I get out there and think, why did I do this? You know, because I know I'm not going to use
Well,
half of this shit.
but we all do it. Like when I went to LKL class, let me show you my bait and lure bag. Just a second. There's my bait and lure bag. I mean, seriously, it's full of stuff. And I set that down, and I knew I was going to get a bunch of crap from the guys, because that's what they do. They break you down.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, I don't remember if it was Lisa or Cal. I don't remember who it was. They're like, what's this crap all about? And I said, look, this is me searching for the last 23 years, okay? And I just got to narrow it down to a few. And but it makes sense. You go online, you see guys that catch, and they say, well, I use this bait and this lure, and I want to catch, so I buy that bait and that lure, and then all of a sudden I got this huge bag with all this stuff. But
Yep.
and you really, I don't, I kind of realized now that 20 plus years of doing that, I'm laying out a lot for them to think, about. Whereas just using one bait and one lure and then moving on, it seems to give them less to think about, if that makes sense.
No, it does.
The more they think, it seems like the more they're going to have that avoidance. It's like they have that. I think it's called necrophobia or something. It's a fear of new things, where they don't. It's just a weird kind of phobia they have, and just getting them past that, can be kind of challenging.
I always tell Matt. I tell him, we'll put something on. He's like, man, they're walking right by it. I'm like, dude, give them 10, 15 days. Don't touch that trap. Don't go near it. Just leave it alone. I have a bad habit of putting a trap in, and I'll check it with binoculars, and I'll stay away from it. I got a cell cam on it, and if I see that coyote walk past it 3 times in one night, now I know, okay, now he's starting to feel comfortable with that set there. Within the next couple of days, I'm going to have him. And sure enough, that's the way it usually works. I mean, I put that deep trench set in that AJ uses, and I ended up banging a red fox in that, and it was like 10 days. And that red fox went past here every day. And he'd walk over and he'd look, but he never committed to step down into that thing until 10 days later, when it seemed like everything died down. All the smells died down. Yeah. That's when he finally committed to go in it. And
it's kind of like he got comfortable with that being there until he finally committed to it. And, that's just how I reasoned that out in my mind. They had to walk by something so many times before they realized, maybe I could check this out now.
Mm-hmm. But and then I've had other guys tell me, they put a trap set in, and the next day they go out and they got a coyote in it. And I'm thinking, I don't know why, and I don't know how that happens, but it did. And, I mean, I'm the guy that leave it marinate, don't touch it, just let it go.
What gets frustrating when I went out to Western Kansas with Vance, and we were trapping this one area that had a dead pit, and I got there. I mean, there was tracks everywhere, and it was like a honey hole. I mean, and we set a bunch of traps there, and then the next day when we came back, we didn't catch, and we saw a bunch of coyotes going by our sets. That got kind of frustrating, but we had figured out that what they were doing was they were going to, the cows that they had dropped the day before, and that was what they were eating. That was where all their attention was. It's kind of like going to a restaurant and you're hungry, and if there's nothing on the table and I offer them a biscuit, they're going to eat that biscuit. But if there's a steak on that table and I'm offering them a biscuit, they're going to go for that steak.
Yep.
And that's kind of how that one came out. And I have that issue with, I don't say an issue, but you kind of learn your properties. I've got an area I call on my channel the breadbasket. It's CRP fields by the hardwoods. It's an area that I know that they're feeding in. For example, I hit that every year at the wintertime when the weather's harsh. I know they're going to go in those areas and feed. Now, I'll set traps on the corners or the areas leading up to that breadbasket. And but where I really catch them is where I cable their trails. And I'll go in there and just really clean them out. And I'll just continuously do that. But that's just a same type scenario where they're distracted, they're hunting, they're tracking. And if I offer them something on the side, they're distracted. Chances are 9 times out of 10, I'm not going to catch them.
Yep.
But where I'm laying cables or snares, I think you guys can snare in your state, in their trail where they're working. It's a very, very effective way to catch them.
Yeah, we can use cable restraints.
Yep.
And we use them. The boys got their first fox this year out of a cable that I set for them.
Good. And there's always something to think about. Like I went from 80 to 90. Let's see how that worked. From the February the 10th to February the 14th, I went from 80 to 90 coyotes. My 70 to 80 was about the same way. So I was averaging about two and a half, somewhere like a day. From my February 14th to the 21st, I had caught my 93rd. So and I caught 3 coyotes in a week, which was not good numbers. And then from the 21st to the 29th was how I ended up catching. But I moved to a new area. I'd really worked my area dry. One of the things that I had found out was we had that breeding season. I generally think right around after Christmas, about the first of the year, is usually about the time we start picking up females that are in heat. And then I don't know if it's a 1 day before or 10 days before, 10 days of, 10 days out, like a 30-day.
Mm-hmm.
But about that 14th of February was about the time when I stopped catching coyotes that were in heat. But the thing of it that I'd figured out, because I made a catch, I had a catch circle where the coyotes were vomiting up. It was cattle from the calves on a nearby farm. So I knew that they were calving in that area. So that was always something else to think about is, when they're calving and they've got a free meal, now I've got to change the way I think about how I approach my property. I never, I had a chew out on a cable
Wow.
and I never saw them again, and that's what they do is they go in, they gorge, they eat so much, and then they wander off and they vomit it up, and then they go back and they gorge again. And they just keep going back and forth until that food supply is diminished.
Now, will your area, when you start putting numbers up like that, is next year going to be even harder, or do you guys going to have the same amount still in that area? Like, do you ever worry about kind of wiping them out of that area?
I don't. I think it's kind of like the leaves that blow over from the neighbors. I mean, we've got trappers in my area. We have quite a few trappers in my area. The fur market, of course, will dictate, how many will be in my area. We also have that thermal season now that's becoming more and more popular. So, like I caught 50 last year in my I think it was 4 square miles of my area. I'll go back on my numbers. I didn't catch quite as many as 50 this year. But I anticipate catching at or about the same amount next year. It just depends on how hard I want to work at it. And, but I mean, I think they're going to just travel over. I know that when we go out to Western Kansas, the coyotes are still there. And the thing of it that really blows my mind is that, there's nothing out there, I mean, there's not a tree to hide behind, and they're just so thick, and they're like that year after year, which is why a lot of the big professional trappers run out to those western areas and they trap. They're still there, so a lot of it's pressure. You don't really know, but you have an idea. I think they'll be around.
Now, you said thermal season. What is that all about?
Thermal predator season, where they call at night. You guys don't have that?
Yeah, we do.
We're allowed to use thermal?
Yeah.
Get out.
Yeah.
I would have said No Fun Pennsylvania wouldn't allow that.
No, we're allowed.
Huh.
I refuse to buy one. I ain't spending that kind of money on a scope. I just think it's ridiculous. I still hunt with a red light.
Yeah.
I mean, we did
in
it last
Iowa.
night.
Yeah, Iowa up 20 miles away. They're year round thermal. I mean, they can hunt year round up there. I think Missouri we get a little over a month. But yeah, I think it's going to make a difference.
We
The
can
more
hunt year round
popular
here.
that's going to be.
We're allowed year round here.
Yeah, I knew we
Yeah.
were allowed to hunt coyotes year round, but I'm honestly surprised that we're allowed to use thermal because in Pennsylvania, we are pretty much forbidden to use any sort of technology that could help or aid you in any way.
3 years ago, they changed that
Okay.
to allow you to use them. I mean, the prices are starting to come down now. So, I mean, I seen one today advertised for like $700. But to me, that's, I'm not a competition coyote hunter. I go out to do it because I like it and I have fun with it. I just can't see myself spending that kind of money. I mean, I got thousands of dollars tied up in traps,
Yeah.
and we don't make the money we used to with those things. So
Yeah.
we do it because we love it. Is basically the reason I'm still trapping.
Right. It makes a big difference, though. I mean, I got buddies of mine that are in other areas. They're sending me game cameras with during the birthing season for their fawns, where they've got a coyote that's got a fawn in their mouth,
Yep.
wandering by their camera.
Yep.
I think you see the overabundance of the predators and how damaging it is to wildlife. It just makes sense for anybody that enjoys the outdoors and hunting or managing properties to have some sort of a predator control program in place, whether it be raccoons and possums, to predators like your bobcats and your coyotes. It's so vital to having a healthy turkey population, deer population. You could do all the food plots you want, but if you've got predators coming in, taking what what you're putting down, it makes it really, really hard.
Yep. So, what is your favorite set to put in?
That's really hard. I learned this one from Vance out in Western Kansas. Jason Vance is from Maine. He's into construction and stuff. He goes out to that part of Western Kansas. He kind of showed me this. They have a pack rat out there, and their hole is like the size of a baseball. And we had figured out, and a lot of your professional trappers, I won't name names, will use that style of hole. It's like a step down at a 90. It's real basic. They're used to seeing it. It's a much smaller hole. I drill it in a 90, and I use a step down. It looks like a football. As far as the bed is concerned, it just steps down maybe an inch or two. It doesn't have a real bowl-like appearance. It looks like a trench, but I think that what makes that set so effective is because it's natural. In my areas, we have voles. If you walk through the CRP fields, you'll see a lot of them vole holes with the trailing. And so that set mocks or mimics what they're already seeing on a regular basis.
Okay.
I think that's been my most effective set, hands down, just because it's natural. It is a dirt hole, but I think if I go to looking at my numbers, that one's pretty effective. I have a few of them that I've really learned to fall in love with the last couple years. I do like my T-bone sets. I really love my my trail sets where they're going down the trail already. Slow them down, catch them. Their feet are on the trail, especially if you're in cattle country. There's something about just knowing where they're going to be and setting that trap down and then catching them, whether it be a day or 2 or 3 days down the road or whatever. Those are pretty exciting sets to make. Got a new set. It's called the Duff set. I use that during the breeding season. Very effective set. But if I'm in bean country, bean stubbles, I just pile it up, make my set about 10 feet off of whatever line they're running, and it's fun catching them in those too. But seems like my step down mouse hole right now is where I'm at on my most effective set. So I think we're kind of like artists. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
We have an ability to become creative and catch at the same time, and that's what makes trapping so much fun.
Now
There's not really, yeah.
I did see your T-bone set. Trying to think. I think it was a remake that you did, maybe?
Yeah.
Pretty sure that's
And
what it was.
there's a lot of times I'll make those and they don't produce. So
See that I've never tried that set, but I think I'm going to try it.
might have 4 or 5 different pitches. He's got that fastball. A lot of times that's light out, but a nice little changeup every once in a while, or curveball is pretty helpful too.
Yeah, I think I'm going to try that maybe next year. Try throwing one of those in and see what happens.
Yeah. And the mound set, did you see the mound set that I'd made?
Yep.
So you got a pond dam, and then you just take a piece of sod that sticks out where the cattle are coming through there. I caught a lot of just grabbing a piece of sod, and then I bury it, to where they can't kick it over, and then just make a couple, 2-3 holes right along that. They're going to mark it. If it's a male coyote, he's going to want to be on that thing.
Yeah.
I caught a lot off of that one set called the mound set. It's like a post type set.
Yeah, we used to do a post set. I used to get old black walnut limbs and burn them, get them charred on the outside.
Yeah.
And then put them in, and then I'd gang set it. I'd put 3 or 4 traps right around that thing, and then it started getting to be a pain in the butt because you'd get there the next day and you'd have him caught in all 4 friggin' traps, and I thought, oh yeah, we'll catch one and then another one will come over. Well, that's not the way it happens because he started dancing around and he ends up catching all 4 of them, and
Yeah. Well, he wasn't going anywhere. That's the main thing.
No. You could take as many pictures as you wanted to because he wasn't getting away.
Yeah.
Well, it was like that fox, the second red fox that we caught this year. We put a set in, came around the other side, took our bait. I put more bait in, did the same thing. So we finally went back over and said, okay, enough of that. We're going to have a trap here. We're going to have a trap here. Put the bait right in the middle. Well, don't you know, it wound up getting caught in both of them.
Yeah.
Have you ever caught an animal twice? Like you caught him in one area, he got away, and then you caught him in another area?
Yeah.
I caught a coyote last year. I'll tell you this story real quick. Every once in a while I'll get a chew out where they chew that wire or it kinks and it breaks. Usually it happens when it's very cold. I check my cables and my traps usually 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. Well, this was about a half mile from the house. I had a chew out. I caught that coyote, the same coyote, 2 miles later in a foothold, and he had that collar around his neck.
Wow.
I mean, it was so fresh. I was like, and the funny thing is, this happened the same season. I caught a fox up by the house. My son and I, we got some pictures of it. We don't catch a lot of fox here. I think maybe 3 to 5 a season at best. So I turned him loose. Well, I turned it loose. I caught that same fox. So I caught him on a Sunday. I turned him loose. I caught him on a Wednesday at the same location I caught that coyote. And that was on a Wednesday. So it went 3-4 days, 2 miles away. He had that same foot damage.
Wow.
Just a little foot damage on the same foot. And I just was amazed because, he could have went anywhere. It was thick, but that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Now,
I've done it with raccoons. Catch a raccoon in a foothold and usually turn them loose. And then, because halfway through the season, I get so tired of skinning raccoons. I start turning them loose, Figure out they got caught once. They're not going to be stupid enough to do it again. Right back the next day, same friggin' trap, That's when they don't get the free pass the second time I catch them. They don't get to go home.
Now, did you let the fox go the second time you caught it?
No, I harvested it after that. I saw the foot damage, and it wasn't bad. If it would have been that 1 foot, he would have been fine, made it. But after then I realized he needed to be harvested. So it was on a
Gray,
different foot.
gray, red.
What's that?
Was it a gray or a red?
It was a red.
Was it?
Yeah, we don't have grays here.
No?
Yeah. No.
Huh.
I think about 20 years ago somebody had caught one. And back then we would go to the local fur buyer and the whole community would come together. And I ended up trading for a gray. But yeah, that was the only gray fox that I know of in our area.
Wow.
Yeah, we just don't have them. And the reds usually stick around the towns and stuff. So
Well, buddy,
I guess
we got to wrap it up, huh?
It's getting to be that time.
So, you want to let everybody know where they can find your social media and all that stuff?
yeah, absolutely. It's Trapping with Jinx on Facebook, Instagram. I also have our YouTube Trapping with Jinx. You can find me there. I'll be at NTA this year. I'll be around there in South Dakota at the big NTA. I go to about 4 or 5 state ones in the Midwest. Yeah, that's pretty much how you can get a hold of me. And I'm glad you guys had me on.
Oh man, we appreciate you coming on. It's always fun to talk to another trapper. We'll definitely have you back on again. Maybe
Oh, yeah,
we'll get
absolutely.
one in before the season starts. Because there's so much when it comes to trapping. There's so much you can talk about, and so much that after we get done with this, I'll be like, oh man, I should have asked him this. But it's
I have a couple sayings I wanted to share with your guests.
go ahead.
That don't grow them, just catch them.
Mm-hmm.
That's usually one I like to say. And every day is arm day. So those are two of my favorites. I picked up a few along the way from other people, but and another one is if you're not tracking while you're trapping, then you're missing something. So
Yep.
I always say it's important to take inventory as you go. The dirt doesn't lie. It'll tell us everything we need to know. And just hang in there as a trapper. If you're going through something, we're all going through something. We never, ever stop learning. So, and don't let short failures ruin your day. Use it as a learning opportunity, and you'll definitely grow as a trapper. So,
Yep. So, buddy,
Well, hang out with us here for a couple minutes. We got to get some bills paid here so we can keep all this equipment running.
all right. Thank you.
So just hang out and we'll get through this here.
yep. That does. Creek Archery, find your passion, then hunt it down.
Hillview Motors, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. Remember, Hillview has it.
Duke Traps, Wildlife Management Supplies.
Apparition Scents, 100% lethal. Get yours today at apparitionsense.com.
Chico Outdoors.
Bow Creek Outdoors. Head over to bowcreekoutdoors.com, use promo code TKE20 for 20% off, and get you one of the best cell cams, general cams, and see what's on the property.
Yes, sir. Z&M Harley Davidson right here in Greensburg. Our Harley Davidson dealership that we buy our bikes from. We get our bike serviced there. Stop up, see them guys, tell them the Keystone Experience sent you.
Back 40 Seed Company, we've started their website. Get yours ordered today or follow them on their social media so you can see what shows they're at.
And don't forget the promo code, Keystone 10. We got Weeby Knives.
They're wicked sharp.
They're not from Boston. Hey, Trapline Beard Oil Company. Stay bearded. Give Brian a holler. He come out with soap. He come out with a whole new line of products. So give Brian a holler. Tell him the Keystone Experience sent you over.
We have the Kelton Black representing American National. Head over to Kelton's Facebook page. Give them a follow for all your insurance needs. commercial, auto, homeowners, farm, life insurance. Get your quote today and do business with someone who cares.
Forget Genetics, another Pennsylvania-based company that we deal with. Great minerals. Get this stuff out for your deer. It helps with the antler growth, helps the fawns. From crawl to wall, they got your six.
Gearhead Archery, rethinking tradition. Head over to the website, check out all the bows from a 24-inch carbon version all the way up to a full-size target bow. They've got a ton of different options. I highly recommend getting one of these in your hand.
Wilson's Wildlife Supply, baits and lures for trapping. Give these guys a holler. They just bought a new company. They will be open here probably the end of September to get all your trapping needs. So look them up, give them a holler.
Rec Broadheads, American-made, mechanicals, fixed blade. Get yours today. And what do they say about Rec Broadheads?
The final cut. Outdoor Call radio app.
Yes, sir. Download it today on Android and iOS, 24/7, 365 days a year, outdoor-related content. So check it out and answer the call.
Well, buddy, what do you think?
I think they also, while they have their phone in their hand, downloading the Outdoor Call radio app, should follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and they can also find us on...
We are now on Carbon TV, so look us up on Carbon TV. Go over there and give us a rating on our show, and we will talk to you guys next time.
Take us out of here, buddy.
Shoot straight and keep the dirty side down.